Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We have once again my friend Mike here for a chat between two nerds. How are you doing today, Mike?
All right, it's certainly been a week over in the wonderful royal city of Guelph, Ontario, and I unfortunately didn't get a chance to play a lot of TTRPG this week. My group we just couldn't make it work this week, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. I kind of needed a little bit of a chance to rest and recharge anyway. So looking forward to, as of this recording, we should be back on Monday, I think.
Nice, nice. I played in my podcast game this week, and my character died,
Ooh.
but nobody will know it for another couple of episodes because we thankfully have a backlog. But it was fun nonetheless. So today we are going to talk a little bit about character development and downtime and stuff like that. And basically, what makes your character more than just a name and a few stats on a piece of paper. I'm actually super stoked to talk about downtime because that's something that I think more people should leverage personally. Because there's just so much you can do with it as both a player and as a GM, and it's yeah, I have thoughts in regards to downtime and the like. But let's take a look first at stuff like character development.
Yeah, like when I started getting into TTRPGs way back when, obviously everybody starts out as a bit of a neophyte. Um, you're more often than not a collection of numbers, stats, and weapons, and more often than not you have a stupid name like Max Power, whatever. Like you don't think much about beyond the dungeon crawl or the heist if it's Shadowrun or what you do in the nights of Vampire the Masquerade or whatever. Um, so developing a character is something that I think it's fundamental, obviously, to playing a TTRPG, and I don't think it's a skill a lot of people really develop until they've had at least a couple years in the hobby. And what I mean by that is TTRPGs is this collaborative story you're all working together to tell. Yeah, sure, you're getting together with your friends, you're fighting whatever from Loftwire, from Satyr from Shadowrun to Vecna from D&D or whatever. But you don't really think about who is this character other than, oh, he hits for 2d12, he goes first in every round of combat, and I have a +5 to initiative. Who is your character? What makes them interesting? Like, what is the character motivation? And I find, yeah, sometimes a lot of us will scoop stuff from like popular media, like, my parents are dead. So obviously, you've got a Batman riff, or maybe you want to do a riff on Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. And it's a
Fuck,
lot of like, yeah,
I,
it's like
I
finding a right reason to do things.
I was just talking about pulling from popular media and stuff like that. One of my characters that I really enjoyed making but didn't get the chance to fully play out just because the campaign died
Mhm.
was based on the character Mugen from Samurai Champloo. If you haven't seen
Interesting.
it, it is an awesome anime. It's like hip hop anime set in historical Japan. Like that's
I
the
think I've seen the first two episodes of it. My friend Ken from my podcast, we did a thing a couple years ago. It was like, hey, I'm going to show you the first three episodes of an anime. Do you dig it or not? So I saw that. Um, what was it? Fuck. Some weird slice of life anime, and I remember Code Geass, but Samurai Champloo was one that definitely stuck out to me. I really should go back and watch that on like Crunchyroll or something.
Oh yeah, it is a great time. Anybody who is on the fence about watching anime, honestly, that's one that I would suggest to anybody. Just simply because it's not ridiculously over the top, but it's
Hmm.
just over the top enough. But yeah, like just kind of to build on what you were saying before is like characters are way more interesting when they're more than just a a pile of numbers on a piece of paper or digital sheet, as it were. Um, Now I do think like I do agree with you, Mike, to a point about it does take some people a few years before they get out of the oh hey I'm super edgelord character, here is my one sentence backstory, I just want to hit things with a large sword.
Hmm.
Like some people, yeah, it does take a couple of years. Some people don't actually go through that phase. Like there are a few people that I've role played with uh within the past couple of years that they want for their like first characters or their like initial role play experience to be more of that like character driven role play. And you know what, I'm fucking super stoked to see it because you know not every
Now, do you think
campaign.
that's a more modern thing?
um
Because you look at shows like Critical Role and whatever Will Wheaton's thing was, Titan's Grave. Do you think it's because of podcasts now people know investing in a character is probably a good idea? Because I know when you and I started out like 20 something years ago, we didn't have the advantage of that. We just had our friends as examples and did the stories get as deep as they could have during that time.
um I think shows like Critical Role have probably had an effect, to be sure.
Hmm.
But I think additionally, and actually probably even a little bit more so, is the encouragement from a lot, like from more experienced players when it comes to things like that. So, like,
Hmm.
those players that, it might have taken a couple of years before they kind of got into the groove of, hey, I'm going to create a backstory of more than just a couple of sentences for my character because, I want them to have some flavor. Like, I think it's, honestly, I think it's a combination of those two things. Because, like, back before, a lot of the older, more experienced players, let's say, it would be kind of evenly split. Half of them would be like, yeah, you don't want to have a decent backstory and a lot of flavor. And the other half would be, you know, here, I'm just gonna do this here and come up with something on the fly and let you sink or swim.
Hmm.
So like it was a little bit harder at, back in the day, as it were, to develop some of those good character development habits. Whereas now, in addition to the better role models within the community itself, like within your local communities, you also have you know the Matt Mercers, the Brennan Lee Mulligans, the Ginny D's, and those voices within the more interconnected, like online sphere
Hmm.
that are running the actual play podcasts and shows and things like that, which, for better or worse, have affected the TTRPG community as a whole.
Yeah, like when you're working to develop a half decent character, it's I don't know, I find with me anyway, having the right group obviously really helps, but having a storyteller, dungeon master, whatever, who's willing to work with you is really important. But also obviously you have to take this somewhat seriously. And what I mean by that is like again, you have to give your character a background, a motivation, and I'm not saying you have to have, you know, like extreme depth where you know exactly where they've been for the last 15 or 20. Like I'm not expecting you to be, you know, Tom Clancy and levels like here is their military history or whatever. But hey, if that's your bag, great. As long as who you're playing with does that too. Because one thing I've also found on the flip side of this is sometimes people will write amazing backstories, but they're 15 pages or whatever. And if you and your DM aren't talking, sometimes the stuff in your background doesn't jive with what the storyteller's starting to plan. So if you overwrite a major world event and it's just part of your background, or alternatively on the flip side of that, if you're starting out as like a level as like a low level character, whatever, especially in a game that's leveled like a D&D, a Pathfinder, whatever, you're not going to be taking on armies at level 1, right? And that's a real power fantasy. And I find if there's a lot of good conversation around the table, you can avoid this sort of like, I don't know, I guess I would call it a narrative oversight when you're building your characters. And I find one other thing that's really important to mention when you're building your characters, and this is something I've definitely seen more recently and even experienced somewhat, not personally, but observed, I'll say. Someone using the game as therapy. And that's almost a trigger warning right there. You obviously, we all want to have a good time. We all want to fight evil or whatever and do the good thing that feels fun with our friends. But if you write too much of yourself into a character, there's a real possibility you're going to get, for lack of a better description, psychic damage, because you get a little too close.
Yeah.
And while that can be good to write from a perspective that you understand, like from lived experience, that's good. But you also have to realize this is a game. You're allowed to experience and do other things. Like, for example, I love to play women characters because they're fucking cool. Like, and where that comes from is not like some repressed, you know, gender expression thing. No. Um, honestly, it comes from Mortal Kombat, if I'm gonna be totally real. I just thought they looked cool. And while I'm not into the Larry Elmore art style of women wearing very thin chainmail in bras, I'm like, well, that's not practical. Um, I just it's just something I've gotten into, and as my writing has improved, because I write a lot of stuff for podcasts. I write for a podcast called Weekly Spookies. Almost all of my characters I've written for have been women, and it's just I find it's an interesting perspective. So it's a good creative exercise to go outside of your boundaries. But where I'm going with this is you want I find with certain characters, find something you want to say and maybe even explore. For example, in the private game I'm playing in, um, I'm playing a druid who has left home and I'm looking for something to bring back to my circle. Now, originally I was a druid slash bard class. I was terrible at playing a bard, so I'm like, I talked with my DM. I'm like, hey, this isn't fitting what I'm putting down. Would you allow me to change in game as long as I can explain it from a gameplay perspective? It's like, yeah, sure. So I switched over to a ranger, and that's a lot more fitting. And it actually kind of worked with my backstory. I found a reason to work something gameplay into my narrative. And as my character's wandering throughout Faerun and the Sword Coast, he's trying to find the girl he spent the summer with, but she was a fae. She's a nymph I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say I just thought that was cool. Um, and I kind of wanted to bake in a past experience. And again, I just said don't use a game as therapy, but I'm using this as a lived experience because I think it's interesting. Is sometimes certain things are just not meant to be. And that's okay. You're allowed to enjoy that experience. Like you're allowed to have that summer fling. And sometimes that's all it's ever going to be. And that's okay. And I love the idea of my character learning to accept that, to not find, yes, he loved them, but he has to learn to love himself and find camaraderie in the people that he's with. And now that I'm basically the team's MASH unit, I'm the fucking medic. We're finding that. And I found a chance encounter because you and I talked a few weeks ago about doing side quests that can really develop your character. I picked up a Winter Wolf companion, and now me and him, that's forming a narrative decision with that ranger class. I'm moving to make sure when I get my ranger subclass, I'm taking Beastmaster to bond them permanently to me. Because right now I'm a level 5 druid, level 2 ranger. So I don't have all my subclass features online. And Ranger Beastmaster is frankly kind of terrible. But narratively, it is outstanding. And that's something you had just said, be more than a collection of stats. Now, if you can make an awesome kick-ass stat thing, like for example, in another game I'm going to be playing in, I made a fighter battle master, so pretty basic fighter, but with some pretty cool abilities. And then I crossed that with a Gloomstalker, who's a ridiculously broken OP ranger class, but I was able to make it work narratively. So not only do I hit like a bloody truck, I made it narratively work. And, you know, again, that's probably the power fantasy in me coming out, but I created kind of a neat backstory. And maybe I'm full of shit. I don't know. But I wanted to create something else interesting there to explore something different because I've never played a power character before. Not really, anyway, where I was like, here's all the TTRPGs as I've learned from Ginny and Mercer and Brendan Lee Mulligan and the Dungeon Dudes and D&D Shorts and all these guys. But I'm also thinking, what makes this character interesting? Because I don't know how my character's going to play in the world of Dragonlance, for example. I don't want to be like, hey, I'm going to go kick the shit out of Riceland. Probably not going to happen, but it could.
I mean, if you got
it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, take your Staff of Magi, cram it up your ass. But yeah, it's like, I want these characters that I create to be interesting. And I found, at least with my group, everybody's willing, although certain people in my group are more experienced than others. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I find with the more experienced role players, the more you're willing to, this phrase is going to come to mean something. If you're willing to let yourself be vulnerable to a certain extent, I find it puts other players at ease, at least in my observation so far. This may not be a universal experience. It can encourage them to start to explore more. Like I play with my friend Tom, and he is starting to work on his backstory. He's a wonderful role player in the moment, but we don't know a lot about his thing other than a few little bits and pieces here and there. But now he's becoming more comfortable as we play with my friends Nick and Sam and our game master Peter, and it works out pretty well. And you're right, like we're becoming more than just a stat block. And sometimes our DM will say, okay, guys, there's no combat in this session. Just talk, work things out together. And there's a wonderful tool that I want to bring to everybody's attention. This may not work for every role-playing group, but if you go on Amazon or your favorite big box retailer or even your local comic book store, you could probably find this. It's called the Ultimate RPG Campfire Card Deck. And what this thing is, it's by author James Amato, and it's 150 cards for sparking in-game conversation. I was going to grab mine, but it's in a binder somewhere. But I can read you what Amazon says. So the examples of some of the cards, here's one that's dedicated to your past. Which of your skills have you struggled the most to master? How and why did you doubt yourself in the learning process? What made it click? So maybe you're having a conversation with Sturm Brightblade or whatever, and you're like, hey, so how'd you become such a good thief? well, when you're living on the streets of so and so and blah 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 blah, that's a good chance to develop things. That's a conversational piece, and that's something for your game master and your fellow players to pick up on, right? Another conversation might be about your present. This is another one of the cards. At the end of your life, would you rather be proud of your accomplishments or your integrity? What makes you feel that way? And that can really give a centering moment for the group. Like if you've just gone through a powerful battle and you're licking your wounds and you're like, okay, if I were have died today, what would have made a difference? The fact that I stood up to Count Strahd and denied his overtures, or that I don't know, stole a bunch of money from so and so, right? I like that it gives you a chance to explore character motivations, because character downtime between adventures, that's role play. Role play is like it's more than just rolling dice and clicky clacky ideal, 66 fireball damage. No, what makes your character tick? Like, for example, I think back to your character in On Sound with Murphy. What made them so unique? Right? Who was their backstory? Because again, you described a wonderful interaction where you and the prince or the primogen or whoever were having a massive conversational and deep moment. That wasn't here. I'm going to use celerity and pound the piss out of you. It was motivated by words, actions, character development, not I'm going to kill whatever.
Yeah. Having those motivations and having not even necessarily just motivations for the plot, but in general. Which this actually is a good opportunity to segue into talking about downtime stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like those downtime activities, like what your character does during downtime, because most of the time, realistically, I know saying realistically when we're talking about fucking TTRPGs is kind of on shaky ground as it is, but just fucking bear with me. Realistically, your characters are not going to be out adventuring every day. Like, you need time to resupply. You need time to heal. I know a lot of that is in a lot of systems, healing and stuff like that is kind of just like
hand waved away.
Yeah, that's one of those things that your character is going to need time to get over stuff, to work their day job. Like, especially if you're looking at something like a Shadowrun or a Call/Trail of Cthulhu game. Hell, even if you're playing D&D or Pathfinder, your characters aren't going to be going into a dungeon every day. You're going to be there's going to need to be time to research that spell that you need to stop the great evil or whatever the fuck your party's trying to do. And during that, it gives you the chance to do other stuff. And one of the things that I think is a kind of a hallmark for a good system is having a way to both narratively and mechanically deal with downtime.
Yeah, there are very few systems that do it well. Like D&D tries, like I know one thing they build into this is like, well, what does your character do between events? Like, do you have a job? Do you make money? What do you do? Do you build stuff? And D&D has still not perfected crafting, and the 2024 rules, no.
And like
a lot of third-party stuff is pretty cool, but
even back in the 2014 rules, like back like traditional 5e, like I think I can't remember which came out first, if it was Xanathar's or Acquisitions Inc. But one of those two was basically the first of the D&D books to actually address downtime,
Hmm.
like as a mechanic. And for D&D, it's okay. Um it doesn't address, like you say, like it doesn't address crafting. It kind of does, but not in a way that's like satisfying. But like it
Shadowrun kind of did. Like, I seem to recall in earlier editions, I think it started with Shadowrun's Out of the, I think the book was called Out of the Shadows. It was the book that introduced point buy system in second edition.
okay.
And I think it came up in kind of later editions as well. It definitely third onward, where like, okay, this is how much it costs in new yen to maintain your apartment, maintain your gear, and even to a point maintain your like contacts. And that sounds weird, but sometimes you got to take your fixer out for coffee, or throw them a few bucks here
Yeah.
and there.
You got to grease the wheels
And
sometime.
yeah, exactly. And it makes your life between shadow runs more than just he sits at home in his apartment waiting for Mr. Johnson to call. No, 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 no. You have a life, and I know when it comes to downtime in D&D, yeah, I like the idea of, when I'm not with my buddies going out to go investigate some weird dungeon in the middle of nowhere. I have a home. I have a place that I live, and that's where downtime can also help develop relationships. Adventure seeds can sprout out of this too. If you and your DM have a conversation, like maybe at your job, maybe you've been accused of theft, and that could be a small little adventure. Like, hey, maybe someone when you're on duty has been stealing from you, and that leads to maybe you find a thieving guild you didn't know existed, and they're targeting you because they know, hey, you're that adventurer that always comes back in the town with a shitload of money,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, like there's always something to get out of downtime. That's a chance to develop NPCs for your game masters. Like that could be husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, kids. There's always something there, or develop those things like hell for even a casual role play encounter for kind of downtime. Every adventure always starts in a fucking tavern for some lame ass
I
reason.
hate that trope.
But I know, like, I've very rarely seen it done right, or at least fun. But with the tavern setting, that's a whole bunch of NPCs. Maybe your character goes down there and you have the equivalent of fantasy Norm from Cheers or something like that. And again, adventure seeds. Maybe something's wrong with Norm. Maybe, he goes home to his halfling wife and maybe there's marital troubles. And again, that could be a fun little segue that doesn't involve stabbing something in the face. I'm not going to say Norm's going home to a succubus or something, but there's something interesting there. And
Most
have
definitely.
yeah, like you have to have your characters live and breathe. You are not I live and breathe for battle. Even barbarians will sit down and take a knee every so often. And hell, you know what? That kind of expands things too. When you look at your character's background, for example, I just mentioned barbarians, but think about characters who are clerics and paladins. If you, as a downtime, maybe you're servicing your god or your church, you're going out among the people, and maybe that costs you money. Like, hey, you're giving a church tithe, I think is the term,
Yep.
or you're going out in the community using your lay on hands to heal the sick. And again, there's adventure seeds there. That's interesting. That's rumors. That's shit. If your DM doesn't have something planned, he's like, hey, can we do some downtime? Yeah, sure. I'm a paladin of Tyr, and I'm going to go to the poor section of town and help people and feed the poor and whatnot. Oh, sir, Mr. Paladin, I'm having trouble. What troubles you, my son? And again, adventure seed. Cool. Now the DM can just throw something together out of the monster manual if he needs to, or perhaps, bring a person to see the light of Mystara or some bullshit.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff that can be happened that does not involve fighting gnolls or hobgoblins.
Oh, 100%. Um, one of the things like I said, like I think with a with strong downtime mechanics that you can do a lot with that. Like one of the
Hmm.
like the system I think who has done kind of the best in regards to downtime in my opinion is Blades in the Dark.
Hmm.
So like for their downtime system, they have basically 6 generic activities that you can do. You have acquire asset, you're getting something. Could be something physical, could be information. Essentially kind of you flavor that as you wish. Long-term project. Are you creating a ritual? You casting a ritual? Are you crafting something? Recovering, because in Blades in the Dark specifically, healing is not as easy as it is in a lot of other systems.
Hmm.
Reducing heat, which is specifically having to do with one of the mechanics for Blades in the Dark, because you're playing a band of criminals, and every now and again you need to make it so that the cops get off your back. Uh, you can also train one of your abilities, or you can indulge your vice, which is another core mechanic of Blades in the Dark. Everybody has a vice. You have to do that. Basically, that's how you make sure you de-stress.
I feel like there's something in this in the Alien RPG as well.
Quite possibly.
With
I haven't looked into it. But like, and then with that, like as far as like the mechanics go, one that I find is the most fun is indulging your vice, because that's one where like the all of the downtime activities kind of have a swinging scale between like the bad result and the good result. But
Mhm.
to me, indulging your vice is it's more fun, because when things go poorly, they can go fairly poorly. Like, um, so when you overindulge, as a for instance, so basically you roll a resistance, you want to try and get like at or below your level of stress. If you go over your level of stress, you overindulge. You basically take it too far, and you either attract trouble, which means that you create an entanglement for your crew because you went out and partied just a little too hard, or whatever your vice was, you were a little bit too aggressive with it. Maybe you started bragging about what you did, and it basically calls the attention of the fuzz, and you gain extra heat for your crew. Or you know what, maybe you get lost. Everybody has heard at least one story from someone in their social group about how they, got drunk and then came to, and they didn't quite recognize where they were. Usually it's not all that crazy. I've heard of some people going across borders. Um, or you could end up being tapped out, where you then have to find somebody else to help fulfill your vice. So, you can use the mechanics from this to help further direct your character, or even the whole party's story, which it's one of the reasons why I personally think that specific downtime activity is the most fun, because it can lead to interesting role play if you have the right GM.
Yeah, because like you always want a GM that's willing to indulge in the less I wouldn't say the silly, but the less high stakes. But even that, saying that, like, yeah, you just went out and partied too hard. Now people are fucking looking for you.
Yeah.
Like that's a great system for that. And that's, again, that's not just focusing on, whatever monster of the week's hunting you. That's your everyday life. That's you as a character. That's your personal bullshit coming to fuck up your day. And I kind of dig that. And it's when you can find the right GM and the right party that's willing to do this sort of thing. It's interesting. I know in my personal group, my friend Sam has stuff in their background that's come to haunt the party even in downtime, because they're like a half drow or the drow or something like that. I can't quite remember. Sorry, Sam. And it's come back to haunt us. And even when we were in a town one time, and I had my coin pit purse lifted from me. I'm thinking, well, that fucking sucks. And I had to use my downtime to go work an evening shift being a cook and a dishwasher in a local inn. And that led to a very interesting downtime moment. Like, okay, Mike, you and your character need to go help out this innkeeper because she'll give you room and board, but she ain't doing it for free. So I took that opportunity to have a moment with the innkeeper saying, hey, thank you for all the time that you've done. Allow me to extend a further kindness. When I come back from up north, I will bring you the recipe of one of our sacred dishes from my druidic grove. And I promise to work another night in the kitchen to make sure you know how to make this properly. And my GM's like, that's really cool. Have a point of inspiration. Like, not every action needs to be dramatic and have such life and death stakes. It's the little moments that build our characters. Yes, we all love having, it's a critical hit and that guy's fucking toast. But I kind of prefer the smaller moments where it's just, this is Dave the thief doing something interesting, or this is Samantha the hacker doing something fun, right? It's cool. And hell, even there is a book in Star Trek Adventures, the Lower Decks campaign guide, which is really, really well done. And it almost talks entirely about downtime or stuff that's less exciting. It talks about building character camaraderie. Like, it talks how in Star Trek, we always see Captain Picard and Riker and Geordi on the bridge, whatever. But there was a skit in Robot Chicken that almost perfectly exemplifies this. Damien, have you ever seen the skit called Night Bridge?
Possibly.
Or Night Crew? Okay, so what happens is Captain Picard and Riker get off the bridge, like, okay, guys, we're done our shift. It's now time for you to take over. And a bunch of random red shirts and operations guys come on the bridge, and they're like, okay, guys, well, this is the night crew of the Enterprise D, and they're on duty from 12 a.m. until 6 a.m. Party time! And it's just them fucking around on the Enterprise. But in the Lower Decks campaign guide, they kind of expand upon this idea. Like, there might be rivalries between decks. Like, did you know the engineering crew and maybe the operations department? Maybe there's a competition for who's the most efficient between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't sound exciting, but it can be like that, and that's something that can even have a gameplay effect. Again, using the Star Trek example, maybe you've increased the efficiency of the warp engines, or maybe you've been able to boost sensor kind of clarity. So rather than going at 5 light years, maybe it goes out to 12 if you're willing to take some power from the main deflector dish or something like that. But it also talks about team building exercise. Like, okay, guys, all the female crew members are going out for a ladies' night, and they're going to go to the holodeck. Hell, there's something right there. Having adventures that are almost purely social, right? Like, hell, Star Trek is almost built exclusively for downtime, because again, you're not fighting the Borg or the Klingons. Good examples of this: Captain Proton, Dixon Hill, any of the Hollow Suite episodes from DS9. Like, or hell, great example of a downtime episode, and it's a beloved episode, is where Captain Sisko and DS9 play fucking baseball against the Vulcans.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, like,
and
that's
like,
exciting.
that's one of the things that I actually really like about the universe of Star Trek. Like, I haven't gotten to do really any role playing within much role playing within the Star Trek universe. The podcast did a one of our streams where we did, like, it was Star Trek, but we were using the mothership system. It was kind of fun. It was interesting. The system is flexible enough to do stuff like that. But like, that's one of the things that I really like about that that universe is the holodeck technology. Simply because you can have your super serious exploration campaign where you're trying to go, boldly go where no man has gone before, but you can still have those kind of silly canned episodes where it's the crew is in a holodeck program and they're playing baseball, or fuck, if your GM is like, you know what, I want to have a beach episode, you can have a beach episode in the middle of space, and there's it's like, it works. You know what I mean? Like, you can have those little side and like happy fun time episodes, and it's great.
Yeah, because like it's stuff like that. It builds the camaraderie between you and your party. And again, it deepens social bonds. It gives you times to develop it develops a friendship between your characters, and ultimately even in your group it can strengthen times. Like our DM Peter will have us do stuff because we're part of a mercenary. You're like, okay, you're going to go out with your drill instructor and you're going to go spar, or hey, you're going to do complex rifle drills or something like that. And if you don't, you got to go work in the kitchen, and hey, now you got to use different skills on your sheet. And that's kind of fun. Like, hey, maybe you're cutting potatoes, but maybe you've never held a paring knife in your life. You know what I mean? Like, it's stuff like that. Like, having these little less high stakes moments develop your character more than any combat situation will, I think. And it's part of the role play experience. Like I said, not like Superman can't be punching Lex Luthor's robots all the time. What makes Superman Superman? Clark Kent.
Well, I mean,
Lois Lane. He could,
but Superman doesn't get tired.
It's true, but like if you look at some of the bigger comic book characters, yes, Spider-Man is known for fighting Venom and Carnage and the Green Goblin, but it's Peter Parker and J. Jonah Jameson that are most often at odds. And J. Jonah's like, I want pictures of Spider-Man. So, he can't always do that. So Peter has to go out and cover all these stupid events. And I'm not saying you want to role play Peter covering the Met Gala, but hey, maybe the Green Goblin crashes it for some reason. But yeah, it's the little things. Hell, even the Avengers, for a good example of a downtime moment that leads to a mission brief, in the first Avengers movie where they're all sitting on the helicarrier and talking, a quip. This really built out the characters as to whose they were. Iron Man goes, that man is playing Galaga. He didn't think I'd notice, but he did.
Yeah.
And then another moment is where Steve, Captain America, is like, I understood that reference. So again, it's these little quippy moments that's going to build you more as a character than any 2d12 strike damage or calling down lightning. Yeah, that's cool, but I'm going to remember more of that man is playing Galaga than I am anything else. You know what I mean? Like, downtime and social and non-combat, that builds you. Your identity is more than a stat sheet that says this weapon does XYZ.
And
even if you're a sniper or whatever, right?
like,
You're more than your rifle.
yeah, like I was about to kind of add in, even if like, because not everybody is super good at coming up with the background and the motivation and all of those like extra flavors that make a character interesting. Not everybody's good at coming up with all of those at once. And you know, your character can start out as a, you know, this is, you know, Chad Chaddington, Min-Max Supreme, super boxer that can punch planes out of the sky. Okay, cool. That's where, you know, that's where your character is started, but as you're developing and as you're going through play, look at the skills that you've given, you know, your plane puncher. Like, not the combat skills, but the other skills. Because like pretty well every system, even for like martial classes like the fucking fighter class, you have enough skills that some of your extra skill points or proficiency in 5th edition end up going into non-combat skills. Like, you know, that's one of the reasons why I liked 3rd and 3.5 is you got so many skills, or could get so many skills if you built your character right. But like those skills, the like non-combat skills, even things like athletics or fucking
Sleight of hand.
Yeah, sleight of hand is one that one I love using that one outside of combat. Like that's hell. I like using sleight of hand inside of combat because it is super interesting. As a player, I like doing it, and as a GM, I love when players are like, "Hey, I want to use sleight of hand to do this." Usually, actually, it's more along the lines of, "I want to try and hide this weapon. Roll sleight of hand." But
I can think of a good non-combat use of sleight of hand, and I can give you a perfect illustration from Marvel. Ant-Man and Jimmy Woo. Ant-Man's card trick bullshit. That's the perfect sleight of hand check that's not combat, but could get you out in a pinch. If you start doing, pick a card, any card, you start throwing cards up because you're spewing them out of your mouth, or Jimmy Woo pulling the card from behind your ear, that might be enough to distract somebody so your thief can sneak in or whatever. And again, it's a fun, non-threatening moment that could have high stakes, but it's a non-combat skill used to gain an advantage. I'm looking at a D&D character sheet right now. Here's another fun skill. History. Here's a skill that so rarely comes up unless you're in a dungeon finding a book. I might allow this at my table. If you rolled history, you could pull a Ben Stein on someone. What do I mean by this? There used to be a show on TV. Damien, you probably remember this because we're both old as shit. But it used to be a show called Win Ben Stein's Money. And it would be him quizzing you on trivia bullshit. You could turn your character into a game show host with history, performance, and deception and persuasion. Oh my god, did I just create D&D fucking Jeopardy?
yeah, basically.
Oh, holy shit, yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, like the those extra skills that people usually just like, you know, take as a, oh, my background gave me this, or I have extra skill proficiencies and I don't know what else to take. Those can be the things that flavor your character, even if you take them randomly. Actually, sometimes if you're just like using them as like dump skills and you use that to flavor your character, that can make your character more interesting. You know, you have Jorgen, the half-orc barbarian who, for whatever reason, has knowledge of politics. You know what I mean? Or just
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, they're a very angry individual. They don't read too well, but for some reason, they know the history of this nation's politics for the past 500 years because that's what they're interested in. Like, or the wizard that takes sleight of hand, and every chance they get, they use their sleight of hand to perform like little magic tricks for kids at orphanages at whatever city and town they stop in, type deal. Um,
Yeah, it's like when you look at your backgrounds, don't just think mechanically this is awesome. Figure out how that works in and what potential role play that could work. Like one background I almost always take exclusively because I think it's really interesting. It's a D&D one. It's called Far Traveler.
I like that
Your
one.
accent, mannerism, figures of speech, and perhaps even your appearance all mark you as foreign. Curious glances are directed your way, which can be a nuisance, but you also gain friendly interest of scholars and others intrigued by your far off lands, to say nothing of everyday folk who are eager to hear your stories of your homeland. You can parlay this attention into access to people and places you might not otherwise have for you and your traveling companions. Noble lords, scholars, and merchant princes, to name a few, might be interested in hearing about your distant homeland and people. That's a role play background. It doesn't say, like, there's another one that I take. I think it's called Far From Home or Hermit. And it gives you the ability where if you know somewhere, you can never get lost. This one I took because it sounds interesting. It's fucking weird. It's pure role play.
I usually
That's
take
good.
hermit. I like
Yeah,
hermit.
because it's good.
Or
Mhm.
urchin. I usually take because of the fact that it gives you sleight of hand, and I do really like sleight of hand as a skill. Like,
Mhm.
it is one of the, like, mechanically, it is one of the most useful skills out there. You can use it to make money. You can use it to open locks. You can. I do believe that's the current D&D skill for disabling traps.
Yep.
That I okay. Honestly, okay, and this is gonna be a small tangent here, and it's gonna be a gripe about fifth edition. Nothing new. They should not have combined open lock and disable device. They should have left those as two separate skills with separate usages.
I see why they did it just to streamline things. I don't have a problem with it, but I get it totally, actually. I do.
Like, I understand why they did it. It does narrow things down. It makes it so that you have to know, like, there's less skills that you have to parse through. It makes things
Hmm.
quicker. There's less of that whole decision paralysis bullshit,
Hmm.
but I still think it's dumb.
Yeah, I'm like I'm looking at the D&D skill tree right now, and I'm thinking you could almost combine history and religion into one skill, but I see why they're separate, right? Like I don't know. It's weird because I remember playing 3.5, and again, there were so many skills, but you could really tailor your character, and like you couldn't be like there are certain builds in D&D where you can literally be a master of every single skill by level 6. It's ridiculous. You could have at least expertise in like 3/4 of the skill. My cat's trying to climb the TV right now.
Oh, fun.
You're you're an idiot, Beaker. I love you, but you are so orange. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, it's like again, even when you're building characters, if you have extra skill points, consider investing them in other areas. Like, don't just be the Terminator. Like, hell, even the Terminator grew up in certain ways, for better or for worse. Dark Fate, he became Carl, and guarantee he had a skill proficiency in drapery as opposed to I have detailed files on human anatomy, right? Instead, he learned how to learn what fucking drapes look good.
I mean, he probably still had those files. They were just like archived.
Yeah, like it's interesting. Like, build your characters out to be interesting. Hell, going back to Star Trek, Captain Picard is an archaeologist. That's what he wanted to do before he became a starship captain. That's come into play several times. Whereas the opposite side of this, I haven't seen Commander Riker's love of jazz come up too often, but it's there. Harry Kim plays the clarinet, and sometimes he'll do that performance for the crew. There'll be recitals and stuff like that. Tom Paris loves 20th century Earth shit, which, just a way to connect the show to the viewer.
Yeah.
But that's what led him to developing the Delta Flyer, because he was like, hey, people in the 20th century liked hot rods. I wonder if I could apply the same theory to a shuttlecraft, to which Voyager, some reason, had like 10,000 of these things, or there was an industrial replicator nobody told us about. But yeah, again, it's the little things. And again, those little skills, those little flourishes in your background can spring into other parts and bring that character who's traveling across the Forgotten Realms, Kryn, Dark Sun to a lesser extent, to life. Or Shadowrun. Again, there's so many little things you can do to make your characters interesting, believable, fun to play, other than just cool. I unload my Ares Predator into his face. Nah, I kind of want to know what's your character doing on a Thursday night. You know what I mean? Like, what's their plan? Hell, there's even chances for, okay, I just thought about this again, because we've talked about downtime and going places. That's a chance to develop romantic interest depending on how your game deals with that. I'm not saying you need to describe everything in explicit R-rated detail, but hey, maybe you get a fade to black scene. And again, hey, there's a new NPC. Or in your Vices thing, maybe that one night stand you had, maybe you hooked up with the wrong person. Maybe someone's after them. Adventure hook.
Oh, exactly. And like that's actually one of the reasons why I like that the way that Blades does it. Is because it definitely allows for that. Like, oh hey, you have now attracted trouble. What that does is basically it comes up with another entanglement that can be, either selected for or rolled randomly. And then entanglements are just complications that come up basically later on, at the GM's discretion, or sometimes via a clock, which is another one of the mechanics that Blades in the Dark does that I think every system should fucking do. As far as like for any sort of prolonged tests or like passage of time type shit. But that is a different tangent that maybe is the topic for another episode. But yeah, like it's, and again, like a lot of this too comes down to having the right GM and the right players in your group. Because like if you don't have a GM that will take advantage of the opportunities that having downtime and having, more expanded character interactions give, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do much with this. But it's my hope that this inspires some new and or would be GMs to be a little bit flexible when it comes to downtime and kind of character building interactions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and this is like, even in your established groups, you can have a re-session 0. You can sit down with your GM and your buddies and say, hey man, could we try doing this for a bit? Don't spring this on your GM without telling them, but have that conversation. Say, hey, can we do a little less Dragon Slayer? Can we do a little bit more Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Can we do a little bit more Honor Among Thieves? Have those moments, have the stories be a little bit more in depth than just dice rolls. And I think your GM and your fellow friends will be like, okay, let's give this a whirl. And you might be very well surprised. For I can think back to my youth. This would not have flown well with my first DM because he wasn't a good storyteller. But as you and I have kind of discussed in the beginning of this, because of the proliferation of actual plays and people in the D&D and TTRPG space as a whole, like your Brendan Lee Mulligans, your Matt Mercers, your Guy from Off My Bridge, D&D shorts, etc. There's so many people that want you to expand. Like I know Ginny D has some wonderful videos on this sort of stuff. So there's always good reason to talk with your GM because we're all there for a good time. I am hoping that the game I'm in lasts years. We're honestly on year 2 of a continuing campaign. Never seen that happen. And hell, there's this almost might be a topic for a future show too, is how do you talk to your DM? Because we love the adventure we're in, but we want the biome to change. We've been in the Underdark for half a year now. I'd kind of like to see the sun at some point. So we're gonna have that conversation with our friend Peter, but I think he'll take it well. But I'm like, hey, can we please get to the Dwarven City? Because for fuck's sakes, I'm sick of looking at these gray walls. So yeah, that's an idea. So that's all I got anyway.
Alrighty. Yeah, it is a good idea because like it can like having that having a conversation with your GM about things like that can help solve a non-inconsequential number of potential problems that your group may or may not have. And like if there's stuff that you don't like, you should be comfortable enough to speak with your GM about it. It would be good almost to decide a player representative depending on like I think for somebody who would be a professional GM, like having like a player representative, because then that way it's like one person that can speak to the GM. But again, that's a conversation for a different day. We are pretty much wrapping up for today. Mike, if you would like to shill something, let us
Sure.
know where we can find you.
Well, you can always find me doing weekly podcasts over at thisweekingeek.net as we start to head into spooky season. We got a lot of good stuff. I'm going to be doing a show with James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, and my good friend and recent horror host Hall of Fame inductee Enrique Couto. We're going to be discussing what made Halloween special for us, kind of Halloween memories as our part of our annual Halloween show, whereas me, Dave, Ken, and Adam are going to be talking about the Resident Evil franchise, all the way from Resident Evil 1 all the way to the end of the final chapter. And we did talk a little bit about Welcome to Raccoon City. That'll be coming out during the month of October. Me, Alex, and Aaron are going to be doing some more stuff. I know we have a new versus old for Night of the Living Dead. I don't know whether that came out, but I know we have Dawn of the Dead to talk about from 2004 and 1978. And then finally, I should have some more stuff coming out. I know we've got some pretty big game reviews that'll be coming out over the next little bit. Some pretty big properties we're going to be talking about. I don't know whether I'm go, so I can't tell you specifically what they are, but let's just say you're probably going to want to pre-order these because some of them look pretty fun. So that's what I got coming out, and you can find that always on thisweekingeek.net. I should get something more up on my Patreon this month for Halloween because I find I usually get inspired around this time. So yeah, maybe I'll do an adventure with Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger and how to integrate those into your fantasy or even sci-fi games.
Ooh, very nice, very nice. Although they have done Jason Voorhees in sci-fi.
Yes, that's true. Jason X did happen
It's a
in space, so
terrible
you are
movie.
correct. I love that. I saw the
Oh,
work print of that. I downloaded that when it became available.
so
Fuck
did
yes.
I. Okay. So did I, and the only reason I know is because I remember watching it like a legal version afterwards, and there were a few parts where I went, "Wait a second, that's not what
That's
I
different.
remember."
Yeah. I
um,
remember watching the what was it? X-Men Origins
of
Wolverine
course.
because the work print had leaked and there was the unfinished special effects for the World War One sequence. And I remember going with the Screw Attack crew when I was down in Texas. We got to go see it at the Texas Movie Grill, and I was thinking, I've already seen this. Kids, don't do piracy. Anyway,
Yes, in keeping with the YouTube terms of service, don't do piracy. Um, anyhow, those of you who have enjoyed what you've seen thus far, please hit the whole like and subscribe button, that whole YouTube thing that I'm obligated to say at least once a video. And I hope you all have a great day ahead. Cheers.